So in this module, we're going to give you some examples of how to use PowerPoint and how to refer to PowerPoint. You'll notice I'm still facing the front of the audience and the PowerPoint slides are here, just like the weather presenter view. So with PowerPoint, one of the biggest challenges we have is how we create it. So what I've got for you is some before and then some after slides. So this is a typical thing that we may well see at the top of a presentation. We have a lot of text on the screen, and the biggest challenge with this is everybody's going to be reading the text, and potentially you will feel like you need to read the text too. So eventually you may well turn your body and you start reading all of this text. So what we can do, instead of showing this, we can change it to this. Nice and simple, clear bullet points. And that means if we want to, we can move over here as we allow all of the audience to see what's on the screen. So we can go, so in visual aids, what are the 4 things that are really important? So number 1, we can highlight the key points. Number 2, it doesn't distract. Number 3, it's memorable. And number 4, it's important, and this is the key message, that visual aids should support but not dominate the presentation. If people can learn the presentation just from the PowerPoint slides, guess what? Send them the presentation and cancel the meeting. But we can also be a little bit more creative. Let's take what we've got up on the screen here and let's change it to this. So now we're using a few more icons. So we've got key points, we've got keep focus, we've got memorable, and that they should support. So in terms of visual aids, if I was running this as an introduction, I may well say something like, on this agenda, we will be talking about the importance of visual aids. So our key messages today are highlight key points only. Make sure that you keep the focus of the audience on you as the presenter with this supporting. It should be memorable, and I'll show you some examples of how to make it memorable, but the key is less is more. And finally, it should support but not dominate the presentation. So another thing that a lot of people do is they use photographs. With photographs, the number 1 rule, especially in today's world, is high definition photos. Now, there are some free sites where you are allowed to use royalty-free photos, or of course you can use your own. So photos are good. How you present them is the key. So if I give you an example, a typical example that I've seen is maybe I'm doing a presentation on the beautiful city of Prague, and I want to show some photos. So on this screen, I've got 3 examples here. The biggest problem with this is the people at the back of the room may not actually see those photos. So what we want to be doing is making it memorable, as I mentioned, and to do that, we take 1 photo and we fill the whole screen. So instead of before 3 photos, we take 1 photo like this and it fills the whole screen, and it acts as an anchor, it acts as more memorable to the audience. Remember, your audience won't remember everything you say, but they will remember how they felt about what you say. So we can use photos, but we don't want to use photo after photo after photo. Make sure that less is more and make them memorable. One place that we can use a photo is right at the beginning of the presentation when we talk about the agenda. So as an example, a typical agenda that you may well see, as we saw earlier, is you've got agenda, we've got 3 different points here. So why do we need to be more creative? How can we do it? And the value it can bring. Now, that in itself is not too bad. We could enhance it by simply doing this. So what you've got here is be creative, and you've got a picture that reflects being creative. In this case, we've got 4 young children just playing around, and who's not more creative than children? My guess is people are going to remember this more than they're going to remember this. And a final example of making sure that your slides pull out key information is when we get financial data. How many times have you sat through a presentation where it's graph after graph after graph and you're just trying to remember everything? Now, some data, if it's very complicated, I would recommend printing it off and giving it as a handout. But in terms of actually showing the data on a PowerPoint slide, let's give you a couple of examples. For this, I've taken some sales figures from a fictional garden centre. So what we've got here is we've got lots of different products, and the biggest challenge with this is on the screen at the moment, you can't read any of this data because the icons are too small. You can see that there's some sales going on, but if you're at the back of the room, it's likely that you're not even going to see this. We can also represent this data using a graph. And again, you've got all these sales figures from plants, ornaments, furniture, flowers, machinery, gifts through a whole fiscal year. But guess what? Again, the audience can't see this. So when you've got data like this, one way to bring it out is very simple. Pull out the key points. So the data that I want to share with you today is around our key takeaways for our garden centre sales figures. In November and December, the focus should be on gifts because we're making £15,690. In February and March, the focus should be on flowers. We have Valentine's Day and we have Mother's Day. The sales for last year, £26,000. And then May to June, the focus should definitely be on garden furniture. We're seeing more people in the summer months, and last year our sales hit nearly 154,000. This enables you to articulate your message to the audience much better than this. With this, you're going to be looking for the sales figures, and again, you're not facing the audience. So some key tips to remember when it comes to presentations. Number one, make sure that you highlight any key words. So anything you want to stand out in a different color, in a different font, maybe italicize it or bold. Whatever you do, emphasize anything that you want the audience to draw their eye attention to. Keep it simple. Less is more. You want a lot of white space, otherwise it becomes overcrowded. You want strong HD photos, so high definition photos. If it's low resolution, as it blows up onto a bigger screen, it can become pixelated. Use simple animated builds. I've seen presentations where they have things flying in and whizzing around. It's too much. It distracts from what the presentation is about. Keep it simple. So if you're going to animate data, that's fine, just like I'm doing here. Bring it in one bullet point at a time. Use black or the blank function. What do I mean by this? If I'm presenting and I want everybody's eyes to come back to me, I'm going to press this button. And on the remote that I'm using, I can blank the slide. Now that means as soon as the screen goes blank, everybody's attention comes back to me. So if I've got a slide that's busy, but I want the eye contact to come back to me, all I'll do is I'll blank the slide. If you don't have a remote, one of the things that you can do is you can actually walk over to the laptop and press the B button. That's the B button. If you press it once, the screen will go black. If you press it again, the screen will unblack. Okay? And then the final one, your slides should not be the same as any handouts. So if you're going to give handouts, don't just print the slides. Make sure that you actually make the handouts valuable for them. It probably contain a lot more data with the key takeaways on it as well for those more analytical audience members. So when you follow those tips, when it comes to visual aids, it can really help the audience follow what you're saying and to get the key message. Don't waste your time building irrelevant PowerPoint slides where they have zero value, but they eat your valuable time.